My name is Reggie Wilson. I'm associate with Norton Rose Fulbright, U.S. LLP. I practice public finance law. I think I started realizing that the practice of law is stressful while in law school. I think a lot of the classes and the load of the classes and the various different work levels that you have to experience really plays a part in stress levels. It's a lot at once. You have to meet a lot of demands. You have your personal issues outside of law school, and then you also had the issues, or at least the issues that you thought existed while you were in law school. So I think it starts before you ever enter into the practice of law. Absolutely. Law school is very, very competitive, and that in itself puts a lot of stress on an individual. When trying to balance the different classes that you take and the different assignments that you have, it can be very challenging, very stressful, and very difficult, not to mention the anxiety that you gain when you're getting ready for finals or getting ready for comprehensive exams. It's not like most grade school or colleges, right? So in college and grade school, you're taught between a 60 and 70 is probably failing, 70 to 80 is a C, 80 to 90 is a B, 90 to 100 is an A. In theory, with the curve in law school, say if you have 10 people in law school and all 10 of those people make between a 90 and 100, well, typically all of them would have A's, but in law school they only give out a certain amount of A's, a certain amount of B's, and a certain amount of C's. So if you made a 90 but the highest person made 100 on the test, ultimately that 90 could be an F. Graduating law school is just step one. Getting a job is the most challenging part. Law school prepares you well to pass the bar and attack the bar and receive your license, but actually getting the job and getting your foot in the door is very, very difficult. A lot of lawyers end up actually hanging their own shingle, which means that they open their own area of law or their own practice, and that may or may not be your goal going into law school. So it is very competitive, and that does add another level of stress because you only have 3 short years to determine what you're going to do in your legal profession. Now, of course, once you get into your legal profession, it's a lot easier to move practice areas. But to get into those firms, especially the major law firms, you really have those 3 years to make that decision, which can be stressful and challenging. Right, so what I did a lot of is I spent a lot of time with family. Family was my vice, that was my getaway, that was my reboot and refresh. Anytime that I felt stressed, I would go out to dinner or go over to my mother's or my sister's and have a home cooked meal and just vent or talk about something that had absolutely nothing to do with law practice or law school. Well, because a lot of times we as people think that we're the only ones experiencing what we're going through, whether it's juggling the challenges that you're facing in your professional career or the challenge that you're facing in your personal lives. Well, if you have a mentor that's been there and done that, and they can give you advice of how they experienced and what they did to overcome it, just some tips and practical tips on how to address it, I think it's that human touch really helps, right? So if you have someone that's saying, hey, I've been there, I've experienced that, this is how I addressed it, these are the things that I've done, it makes a better connection and also paves a way for you to address the personal stress that you have in your life. I am happy in my chosen profession. The reason being is because I have my boundaries set. One of the biggest things that I like to do and get away from that practice of law is traveling. And I protect my boundaries. So when I'm away and I'm traveling, I turn off my social media. I turn off my emails. I'm not accessible. And that's because I have an understanding of what my focuses are and what my number one priorities are. That's not to say work isn't important, because it is, but just make sure that you understand what your personal goals are and that you prioritize those goals.